Perfect. Good morning and welcome to Christian Mirch, legislative candidate from District 6. Thank you, Christian, for joining us for our virtual legislative candidate meetings. My name is Gina Ragland, and joining me today are AARP lead advocacy volunteers, Susan DeCamp, Joyce Beck, and Danny DeLong. It's also my privilege to have with us today AARP Nebraska State President, Dave Holmquist. Emily Wick is also joining us today to assist some of the technical details for the program. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded and we will be sharing it with AARP members across your district prior to the election. Christian, we appreciate your taking the next 30 minutes of your time to meet and discuss issues of importance to the 50-plus voter and their families in your district and across Nebraska. AARP is the nation's largest nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to empowering and strengthening people 50 and older to choose how they live as they age. As people live longer, healthier lives, we know we need to think differently about what it means to age. So Christian, if you want to start us off by giving us a little background about yourself and your campaign, and we're looking for maybe 5 minutes or less on that, that would be great. And once we've completed your opening, we'll move into the questions. So with that, I'll hand it over to you.
Sounds great. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate the opportunity. So my name is Christian Mirch. I was an Omaha police officer for a little over 10 years. I worked every precinct in the city as a uniformed officer. I also worked in investigations and on the gang unit. I then attended law school at Creighton University while I was working for the police department. And when I graduated from law school, the Chief Justice for the Nebraska Supreme Court asked me to come work for him. So it was an offer you don't refuse because it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. So I left the Omaha Police Department to go work for the chief and to clerk for him for a term. And then I went out into private practice as an attorney and back into law enforcement part-time just to help out a small community west of Omaha. So one of the things that kind of brought me to running for the legislature is as my time progresses as an attorney, I've seen a number of issues where we can do better as a state. And I've seen issues where individuals have lost their homes trying to figure out how to pay for medical care and their property tax bill and having to choose between which to pay, and ultimately losing the home that they and their loved one lived in together. So that was something that really struck me and made me kind of one of those pushes towards deciding to run and actually fix some of the problems that we have.
Perfect. Great. Well, Christian, again, we provided you ahead of time with a set of 3 issues containing 4 questions that address the 50-plus in Nebraska. And again, we're looking to allot about 5 minutes for each of the questions as we go. Our first question this morning, question number 1, of course, is health, caregiving, and home and community-based services. And Susan DeCamp is going to take that for us. So go ahead, Susan.
Good morning, Christian. It's nice to meet you.
Very nice.
Like Gina said, I'm doing the health, caregiving, and home and community-based services question. So home and community-based services, also known as HCBS, provides an array of services designed to assist individuals with activities of daily living that promotes independence to support them to age in place or delay institutional care. A family caregiver is any family member, friend, or acquaintance who cares for another person that is unable to live independently, and oftentimes they provide this care without pay. Telehealth services can be significant for older adults in rural areas and underserved communities, while also providing support to family caregivers by reducing travel, wait times, and costs associated with in-person care. So we have a couple of questions for you on this topic. The first question, what will you do to support the 240,000 unpaid family caregivers in Nebraska through policies such as enhanced respite services, access to telehealth, caregiving education and training, and help with out-of-pocket expenses? And question 2, what will you do to protect and/or expand the home and community-based services program, particularly recruitment and retention of a sufficient workforce and adequate funding of the services that Nebraskans and their families rely on?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. So absolutely, there's definitely a need to provide and support the caregivers and those aging into these systems. And so some of the things that I look at as a policy perspective, or from a policy perspective, is the out-of-pocket costs. Obviously, the amount of time that is taken, whether to take a loved one to medical appointments or help them around the house. That's all time that is not being spent at work or with other family members. So taking that into account, and also realizing that the financial cost for Medicare or Medicaid, depending on their situation, it's reducing the cost for the state and for the government by not having that person receiving professional services in a facility. So realizing that the government is saving money in that case, I think that there's room to provide either tax credits or tax deductions to caregivers and do it based on how many hours are reported over the course of each month, each quarter. So that way we can give a financial benefit that offsets what the state is also seeing there. I think that it's also important to understand that there is an absolute learning curve when you start caring for another adult. So I started out as a paramedic, and so focused a lot of our time in a lot of home care, and then also care facilities, doing transports and medical care for those folks. There is a huge learning curve there. And so one of the other areas that I would like to see is providing grants for community health programs and hospitals to provide additional training, support, and guidance to caregivers, whether it's about a specific medical condition, how to care, how to lift patients properly, those things that I think that there's an opportunity to grow that or to build that program out. And then that also allows more face-to-face time between physicians and nurses and the caregiver that's at home. So they're feeling more comfortable, and they can feel that they can communicate more freely. Funding for telehealth is absolutely important. Nebraska has a shortage of medical care. My wife is a physician, so we know that across the state, folks are hurting for physicians, nurses, techs, medical aides. So making sure that we're utilizing the resources that we have currently, the medical staff that we have currently, through every means, telehealth, Zoom visits, is something that we should absolutely be working on and encouraging and growing. And then to your second question, again, those community-based program grants and growing the recruitment of in the medical field through youth recruitment, CNAs, RNs, bringing them in, and then providing the educational opportunities at community colleges, and then also funding there, but then also looking at some of the nursing facilities and being able to have, and again, this is a rough idea of having a shadowing program that then allows you to transition from maybe a medical tech or a medication aid to being a CNA to an RN, growing that as another pipeline for education, so where it's hands-on training that they're seeing, and that way we're also growing that workforce simultaneously. Those would be some of the areas that I would like to see improvement on. I think that if we're able to grow the resources, we'll be able to bring the cost down. I think we've seen this play out a different way, where if it's just throw money at what we'd like to have happen, I think we just saw it with the electric vehicle situation, where encouraging folks to buy electric vehicles. So the federal government offered $7,500, and then so auto manufacturers said, "Oh, great, that's excellent. You should buy one. We're also going to tack on, it's now an extra $8,000." So attacking this issue from the supply side, rather than putting more money on the demand side.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christian. Our second question that we're going to kind of switch. I know you talked a little bit about nursing facility, but we're going to get a little deeper in on nursing facility quality. And Joyce Beck is going to take that question. So go ahead, Joyce.
Nearly 20,000 Nebraskans require care in nursing facilities or assisted living communities. Facilities have been closing their doors, citing reimbursement challenges and staffing shortages. Nebraska will need to add an additional 4,700 more nursing assistants, LPNs, and RNs by 2028 to meet Nebraska's care needs. Everyone, regardless of where they reside, deserve to be treated with dignity and respect and have access to quality medical care. Better staff to resident ratios improve the overall quality of care and well-being of residents. Workforce recruitment, retention, and job satisfaction challenges are prevalent across the long-term care services and the supply industry. Causes of workforce challenges must be identified and implemented to respond to the growing need for high-quality care. For the question for you then, Christian, is this: what will you do to improve the quality of nursing facility care for Nebraska residents, including addressing the growing long-term care workforce crisis in the state, professional education and training, and accountable facility reimbursement?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. So one of the biggest issues or hurdles that these care facilities are seeing along, in addition to the funding reimbursement, which we should absolutely address, is some of the burdensome regulations that they're having to abide by, that some are duplicative and unnecessary, but they provide an added cost to those healthcare facilities. As you mentioned, they're also struggling with recruitment and retention of quality staff. Again, I kind of touched on this. I think recruiting young people into the workforce there, it's an untapped resource. So if we're recruiting folks into a training program to where if they're interested in becoming a physician later on in life in college, that's excellent. We understand we're going to have them for a short time. They're still filling a need. They can then get on the job experience, interacting with patients, which is something that every physician has to go through during the course of their training, or RN or paramedic. So making sure that we're recruiting these folks in early, providing the facilities with the opportunity to train and certify some of these folks to a certain extent. Obviously, you can't have some facilities certifying nurses, but CNAs, med techs, and that way the people that are filling the job are then having the ability to have that hands-on experience, what field they're going to be going into, and then on the benefit side of it for the facilities and for the patients is they're seeing interactions with young people. They're getting the services that they need, and we have a continuous pipeline going in. It also helps our economy by having these young kids, I say kids, teenagers going into college in these facilities, interacting with patients, and we see that the benefit there of them having an income. So again, providing those sorts of things, as you said, reimbursement is a major issue, and I, having grown up around in a medical family, seeing some of the, for lack of a better term, games that are played when it comes to reimbursement for costs for medical care. There are some serious issues both at the federal level and at the state level that we need to address, because again, as you mentioned, these facilities are closing their doors. And so then what do we, as a state, what are we looking at when these doors close and these facilities close? We're seeing the patients aren't going away. We're going to have to put them into or transfer them to another facility that's overburdened, and then their quality of care goes down. So we need to be focused on quality, affordable care across the board, and setting up long-term goals for the state of making sure that we're adequately funding quality care for all of our patients.
Perfect. Thank you, Christian. Our final question for today in our discussion revolves around livable communities and helping people stay in their homes. And Danny DeLong is going to take that question. So go ahead, Danny.
Good morning, Christian. Glad to see you here.
Thank you.
When we talk with older folks, they almost all say the same thing. I want to live in my home as long as I can. I want to live in my home community as long as I can. It's called aging in place, and that's one of our priorities. To do that, people need to live in a livable community. And that livable community, you said you worked at several smaller, you're doing some law enforcement part-time for smaller communities out west of Omaha. Well, livable communities need to be safe and secure. They need to offer affordable housing and transportation options that allow individuals to travel by multiple means. And 3, they provide supportive community features and services such as access to healthcare and high-speed broadband. That allows people to remain in place as they age. Affordable transportation options are critical to support older Nebraskans aging in place. High-speed internet should be affordable, reliable, and accessible for all Nebraskans. Digital skills development, also known as digital literacy, is also essential to obtaining the benefits of high-speed internet access in the home. So our question is, what will you do to ensure all Nebraskans, mainly those 50 plus, have access to livable communities which offer affordable housing, diverse transportation options, adequate health care, and affordable, reliable, and accessible high-speed internet, including digital skills development?
Absolutely, thank you. So one of the biggest issues that I hear in my community, in my district, and I going door to door, is the increasing property tax level that we're seeing. We are taxing people out of their homes. It is especially true for seniors and those who are retired and on fixed incomes. I spoke to a lady a few weeks back about her husband who's 75, and as we were speaking, I said, we're seeing retirees having to leave the comforts of retirement that they have earned in order to go back into the workforce to combat inflation, the cost of care, and then as well as the property tax bill that they're seeing. Not realizing that, and she informed me that her husband, who is 75, has returned to the workforce and has had to leave retirement just so that they can stay in their house and afford their grocery bill. That's something that just can't happen in our state. It can't happen anywhere. So one of the things that I would immediately want to start addressing is the immediate costs that retirees are seeing. So, and I have a couple of different ideas or plans for doing that. Is First would be providing incremental property tax relief and reductions that are automatic beginning at age 50. And so slowly phasing out their property tax, realizing that a number of people are entering into retirement shortly after 50 or around that age. But then also in that same area is if there is a demonstrated medical condition in which they're having to pay a certain amount that would be equal to their property tax bill. Well, it's not fair for that person to have a high medical cost bill that they're paying for and a high property tax bill that they're paying for. The state should come in and wipe one of those out, and we have control over the property tax. So bringing that property tax down for people who have a demonstrated medical care that they're trying to fund. And then the second part And I've talked with one of the gentlemen that's going to be the next assessor for Douglas County. He's running unopposed in the general, is an automatic homestead tax exemption. And I would like to see it at age 65. You don't have to file any paperwork. You turn 65 as your birthday present. You never have to pay property taxes again. So that way we're putting money back in or letting people hold on to their money. It's not putting money back in their pockets, letting them hold on to their money that they've earned. And it's a realization that a lot of these folks are on fixed incomes. Now, we also need to focus on, as you mentioned, making sure that the communities are safe. We need to make sure that a lot of the fire departments outside of Omaha, especially and Lincoln, are volunteer fire departments, making sure that we're providing and taking advantage of any federal grants, and then also making sure that we're providing state grants for ambulances, for AEDs, for all of the medical equipment that is very expensive. And then also making sure that we're properly funding law enforcement in these areas, because unfortunately, even in our state, we see criminals target senior citizens at a higher rate. So making sure that we're funding our law enforcement so that we can go after these criminals who are trying to exploit senior citizens, so that they are safe in their homes. Public transportation, Nebraska is a very large state, as you all know. Trying to figure out how we can provide adequate transportation, whether it's public or funding a way for ride shares, or working with medical facilities or doctors' offices to get these folks the ability to travel from their home to their physician in a safe manner, in a safe and cost-effective way is absolutely important. It's something that we should, that I'd always be open to talking about and learning more how we could do that. But the immediate action that I would like to see is addressing the property taxes and making sure that people are holding on to more of their money. We also obviously have a housing shortage in Nebraska and Omaha especially. So building out, making sure that we're building out communities and neighborhoods that are affordable, especially for those who are entering into retirement.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Christian, and appreciate your comments on the homestead exemption. Obviously, you know that is a huge piece of the work that we do, and something we always try to protect and place secure. So I find your comments very, I appreciate them very much, because it is a very important concept. So thank you for understanding, because not everybody understands homestead exemption. So. Oh, yeah. So thank you again, Christian, for answering those three questions. Again, we're coming now to the end of our 30 minutes in our meeting. I would like to take the remaining about 5 minutes that we have to offer you the chance to offer any closing thoughts, comments you might have for your members or our members and the constituents of your district. So I'll throw it back to you if you have any closing comments.
Absolutely. So one of my goals as a aspiring state senator is to be accessible to everyone in my district. That's why every time I knock on someone's door, they get not just the palm card that everybody gets, but they also get a business card that has my actual cell phone number, my email address, and so making sure that I am available to people is one of my top priorities. My email is Christian.Mirch, M-I-R-C-H @gmail.com. I am always happy to take emails and follow it up with phone calls anytime, day or night. That's what our representatives are here to be, is to be accessible and be a voice for us in the legislature. That's what I'm looking to do and looking to help people. And that's why I got into this race. And I hope that I can count on everyone's vote. And I look forward to this adventure that we're on.
Thank you again, Christian, for taking the time to visit with us. We wish you the best with your campaign, and thank you for meeting again with AARP today. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christian.
Thanks, Christian.